Bendy and the Ink Machine. This game is a game that I've wanted to play for a long time. Ever since I saw it, I've wanted to play it. And I got it for Christmas, so I thought, hey, why not review it? Now, this game isn't new by any means. Most of you have probably already played it or seen someone play it, but if you haven't, then I would suggest you checking it out. There are some problems with it, so you might not enjoy playing it, but we'll get to that in a bit. But anyway, this game is a pretty mixed bag, and I'm going to go into all of it right now. So without any further ado, let's dive straight in.
Alright, Joey. I'm here. Let's see if we can find what you wanted me to see.
First of all, Bendy the Ink Machine is a horror game, which means a lot of the enjoyment playing this game is about being scared. And this game does a pretty good job at scaring you. At the beginning of the game, you're invited by your old friend, Joey Drew. He was your old boss at an old animation studio, and you're invited back to just see something. You're not told exactly what you're supposed to see, but he wants you to see something. More of the story is explained throughout, like there's these cassette tapes you find throughout that you can just listen to, which are slightly annoying. I mean, the idea of listening to something while you play is really nice. That way your eyes, your hands, and your ears can all be doing something. Usually I listen to something while playing a video game like a podcast. However, some video games I don't listen to a podcast because the video game just has enough dialogue in it that I could enjoy that without having to listen to something else. And I thought these audio logs were going to be just that, but they weren't. You can't listen to them unless you're standing right next to them. If you walk away, they just fade out, which was very annoying. It meant I could listen to them or play the game instead of listening to them while playing the game. So that was annoying, but still. Anyway, enough about the audio logs. As you can probably see, this game looks amazing. The style of the game is based on the 1900s cartoon era. You know, like classic Mickey and stuff. And it really looks like you're just playing in an old cartoon. Like, everything looks so beautiful. But you can clearly see that. But while you're wandering this beautiful area, occasionally you'll get scared. This first chapter has... Oh, wait, yeah, there's 5 chapters, by the way. Anyway, this first chapter has plenty of jump scares. And just other small things throughout that just creep you out. Like doors opening behind you. Or things just moving around behind you. Like you'll walk down a hallway, turn around, walk back, and there's a Bendy statue in the way. Where did it come from? Oh, and also sometimes the statues are peeking around corners. What? Also, you find a dead dog thing. This is a character known as Boris, but we won't get to know him till later on. But his dead corpse here is really creepy. But you finally get actual one big jump scare at the end of the first chapter when Bendy himself jumps out at you. And many times throughout the game you would have plenty of creepy moments, but this first chapter is where most of it is. There's so much packed into this first chapter. Lots of things moving and changing. Later chapters wouldn't have nearly as much stuff happening. But about this first chapter, how do you play it? Well, the main gameplay is... just walking. Yeah, that's about it. It's just fetch quests. You walk around and grab things the game wants you to grab. That's about it. You find the ink machine, then you can find the lever to turn on the ink machine, but the lever's down, so then you find the items to turn on the lever, and then you find the pressure gauge, and then you go back to the ink machine, and then you run from Bendy. It's just running around this same building. And this would be fine if you weren't so slow. You walk so slowly. So since you're having to walk around this one building over and over, retracing your steps, it becomes super annoying. Like, if it was new areas, that'd be fine, but it's not. You're walking areas you've already been in, but slowly. That's the biggest problem with this chapter. You're having to go back through old areas and at a terrible slow pace. It's super annoying. Later chapters would try to fix this. Not by increasing your speed, but increasing the quality of the challenges you're doing. Instead of just going back through the same areas, you'll do unique stuff. But we're not there yet. Chapter 2 is basically the same as chapter 1. It's still just a lot of backtracking. There are a few unique things, but mostly just backtracking. Like there was this puzzle where you have to play instruments in a certain order to open a door, but that was basically the only interesting thing there was. It's really just more of the same. But I mean, there are some highlights, like one time you get to see Sammy Lawrence, who then later in the chapter kidnaps you, but that's about it. And there's not much new for the gameplay itself. I mean, that's not technically true. Chapter 2 does add combat, but it's meh. It's not interesting, but you also don't do it that much, so I don't really care. Now, chapter 1 and 2 have both been pretty boring. It's just been about wandering around this area just with lots of boring things to pick up and collect and then bring them wherever you need to bring them. Of course, there are a few creepy bits thrown around, which just makes it more interesting, but that's about it. So, does chapter 3 fix these? Well, no, not at all. This time the building is even bigger, with loads more fetch quests. Oh my gosh. This time you partner up with Boris the dog. Well, actually you meet him at the end of chapter 2, but it's in a cutscene and the chapter ends right after you meet him, so you don't really get to do anything with him. But anyway, in the beginning of chapter 3, you meet up with Boris and help him out a bit, and then you start moving on, until you meet Alice Angel. Alice Angel is evil, but she can kill you, so to stop her from killing you, you just do her fetch quests. I mean, they try to make the fetch quests entertaining, but it's just fetch quests, and you're still super slow. However, this chapter does add wandering enemies. There is an evil Bendy wandering around trying to kill you, and you can hide in these boxes so he won't kill you. However, I barely ever saw him, and whenever I did, I was always close to one of these boxes, so it was never really a challenge. So it was a cool idea, but it wasn't used that well. Oh, also, I really hate how this level is structured. There's an elevator in the center that can bring you through all these different floors, or you could take the stairs. Now, whenever Alice told me to go do something, I would take the stairs because I wanted to see the whole building, so that I wouldn't miss something if it was important to the challenge that Alice told me to do. However, something I didn't know was some floors you can't get to on the stairs and have to take the elevator. This meant I was searching for a long time looking for something that I couldn't even get to. And I thought about looking it up, but I paused the game, and there was actually a hint system. Yeah, the game didn't want you to get stuck, so they just told you exactly where to go on each hint. Whenever you're given a new task, you're immediately also given a hint in the pause screen. I then checked the pause screen after every mission I got from here on out. Anyway, the hint just told me to go to a certain floor, so I did. And then I just kept doing a few more tasks, until eventually I completed the chapter, and Boris gets kidnapped. Oh yeah, that's pretty important, but yeah, Boris gets kidnapped by Alice. Anyway, moving on to Chapter 4. Well, does Chapter 4 improve upon Chapter 3? Well, let's find out. You start up, and you start doing missions, and, well, you immediately see that, oh my gosh, yes it does. You actually have unique challenges and boss fights. Oh my gosh. There's so many different unique things you can do here that aren't just fetch quests. This is probably my favorite chapter because it just has the most fun stuff to do in it. Also, there is the occasional creepy thing. Like, you know how earlier I said Chapter 2 added this combat system? Well, the things you'd fight are these weird ink creatures. And in this chapter, Chapter 4, you see these ink creatures, but this time they have eyes and they aren't attacking you. This is just creepy. Like, what is this? I don't know. It's just, ugh. Also, later you find some that are crying in cages. It's just, what the heck? I don't know what it is, but it is pretty interesting. Anyway, like I said, there are two bosses. The first boss is this evil carnival ride. It's a meh boss. I mean, you can just stand against the wall and it can't hit you. So it's not too difficult. It's more about just doing than actually being a challenge. However, what you're supposed to do is pick up this axe on the floor and then break its arms off. However, when I played it, I was an idiot and didn't see the axe, so I was just wandering around, figuring out what to do, and I had no idea until eventually I just wandered around enough until I saw the axe, which was fairly annoying, but still. It was probably my fault that it was right in front of the door, but I guess they could have, like, highlighted it better or something. I don't know. The second boss is Boris. Oh yeah, your friend Boris you found earlier that was kidnapped? Yeah, Alice turned him into a monster, and this time you have to fight him. The fight isn't that difficult either. You just dodge his attacks, which isn't that hard, and then just go whack him and do it 3 times until he dies. It is a little annoying, because the first time he just runs at you, the second time he jumps at you, and the third time he throws cards at you. And you can't hit him until he goes into this breathing phase. So after he runs at you, he'll hit the wall, and then he'll just stand there breathing for a second, trying to catch his breath. But he doesn't do this for the first couple times. So first, he'll run to the wall, and then just immediately be okay. Then he'll run to the wall again, and be okay again. And then the third time he'll run to the wall, and then he'll have a breathing phase. And then he'll run again and have a breathing phase, and then he'll run again and have a breathing phase, and so on and so forth. So the first 2 times, he won't have a breathing phase. And then in the second phase, the same thing happens. He'll jump at you and be fine. Then he'll jump at you and be fine. Then he'll jump at you and then have a breathing phase. So obviously, you'd expect the same thing from the third phase. He'll throw a card at you and be fine, then throw a card at you and then be fine, and then throw a card at you and then have a breathing phase. However, I was an idiot and didn't realize that it would also take 3 attempts this time, so I just tried to attack him and he would whack me, and I tried to attack him again and I died, and it sucked because I'm an idiot. But still, not the game's fault, it's just my fault. But anyway, after you kill Boris, Alice gets mad at you, tries to kill you, and she gets killed. By who? A second Alice. Yep. And thus ending Chapter 4 and beginning Chapter 5. Chapter 5 starts off with you in a prison cell. Alice number 2 and Boris number 2 are, I guess, your caretakers. Boris doesn't really like you, but Alice kinda does. It's not really that important. But anyway, you're told that Bendy is about to come to their hideout, and so they all have to run away and leave. So they run away, leaving you there. Then you find a way out of the cell, and then you run behind them. And thus starting the actual gameplay. This gameplay it is fine. It's not as boring as the first 3 chapters where they were just fetch quests, but it's not as good as the heights of Chapter 4. It starts off with this boat ride where you have to drive forward, then turn around and attack the things, then drive forward, then turn around and attack the things over and over again. It's just tedious, and I'm not really a fan. And later on, you have this stealth section where these 3 guys run around, and you have to try to hide from them, but you don't just do it once, you have to go back and forth 3 times to get 3 separate items. It's just annoying. So this chapter isn't as good as Chapter 4, but it's still fine. Oh, and they also add 2 more boss fights. The first fight is with Sammy Lawrence. Yeah, that guy that kidnapped you in Chapter 2, yeah, he's back. His boss fight is boring. You just attack him, then back away so you heal, then attack him, then back away so you heal, and it's not that interesting. But after you defeat him, then Boris and Alice show up. Then you fight off a wave of enemies, which is Also boring. Yeah, like I said, it's not as good as chapter 4. But eventually you keep progressing until you get to an ink ocean lake thing. I don't know. Alice and Boris can't cross, but you can because you're not made of ink. Oh yeah, Alice and Boris are made of ink because they're ink creatures because they were made from the ink machine. I don't think I'm explaining this story very well. I'm assuming you've played the game or seen someone play the game. I don't think I need to explain it. I don't know. Maybe I do. I'm not sure. Anyway, you cross and then you find Evil Bendy. This is the final boss. This Evil Bendy transforms into this giant beast Bendy, and a boss fight starts. This boss fight is meh. It's got 2 main phases and neither of them are that interesting. The first phase, he just runs around like Pac-Man. He just runs along straight lines throughout this weird small mini maze thing. I don't really know what to call it. He'll run into a wall and then just go through it and then come out some other wall and keep running. You then have to walk around not getting hit by him and turn on these switches. However, I wasn't really sure what to do. Like, I knew I had to turn the switches on, but in what order? Well, I first started by turning on a switch, then turning another one, and then dying. So when I respawned, I went back to the switch, but I couldn't pull it. I assumed this meant I had to pull them in a certain order, but that order was randomized, so when I died, the order changed. So I went to go find more switches. I found one and pulled it, then found another and pulled it, and then died. So when I respawned again, I was looking for the starter switch. The switch that would start the sequence of switch pulling things. But I couldn't find any more switches that needed pulling, and I had no idea what to do. So I looked it up. So I went to the switches the walkthrough went to, tried to pull them, and it wouldn't let me. So I put 2 and 2 together and realized that I had already pulled them. Yeah, it saves after you pull each switch. So even if you die, you don't have to pull a switch again. It's already pulled, which makes this boss super easy, because as long as you pull a switch and then die, it's fine. It remains pulled. It removes all challenge. In fact, this entire game just doesn't have any challenge to it. Like, throughout the game, it would save all the time, so that even if you died, or even if you had important stuff on you, you wouldn't lose it. Like in chapter 3, when you had all these fetch quests, if you picked something up and then died, you still had it. There was basically no penalty to dying. Oh, and also, in these boxes that you could hide away from Bendy, he doesn't see you at all. Like in other games, if the monster sees you hide, they'll know you're hidden, and they'll just go find you. In this game, nope. If you're hidden, they just lose all interest in you. It makes the game super easy. This game isn't meant to be that difficult. It's just meant to be fun and creepy, but not difficult, which I get. If you're trying to make a horror game that tries to terrify the player, but they're being frustrated, they're not going to be scared. So to make them more scared, you need to make them keep progressing, so don't make it difficult, which I kind of get, but it's also kind of don't. I don't really care. It's fine. But anyway, after you pull all the switches, you can go through the door and keep progressing. Then you go into phase 2. This time, Bendy walks around the room and occasionally charges at you, and you have to make him charge into these 4 pillars. Again, it's not that difficult. I mean, while he's walking and not charging, I don't even think he can deal damage to you, even if you run into him, but I'm not sure. But anyway, once he knocks down all the pillars, you can keep progressing. Go into another room, put this wheel in a projection player thing, and play the ending. Yeah, you just play a video of the end, and then Bendy just dies. I don't really get it, but I don't really care. After that, the end. Then you watch this cutscene. You watch this cutscene that is pretty realistic. It's not in the same style as the rest of the game. It's not a cartoon. It's not just black and white. No, it's full color, which is immediately really weird, but okay. But you're talking to Joey Drew, you know, the guy that invited you there in the first place, and he tells you to go there. So you turn around, go through a door, and you're at the start of the game. Yep, the game just started over. Is there a meaning to this? I have no idea. Like, there might be some meaning. MatPat has made some theories on it. Other people have made some theories. I have no idea. It's weird. I don't get it, and I don't really care. I don't want to play the game again. I mean, it is slightly different this time. You have this weird tool that allows you to see hidden messages, but that's about it. I didn't really want to play again. I mean, why would I? I just played it. But anyway, yeah, that is Bendy the Ink Machine. So, what are my thoughts? Well, it's quite a mixed bag. The first 3 chapters are very boring. The gameplay isn't that great, but there are plenty of spooky moments to keep you going. But chapters 4 and 5 are pretty entertaining, but they don't have nearly as many spooky moments. You can clearly see that the creators of the game got better as they made the game, so I hope their future projects are also really good, just like the amazing chapter 4. But maybe they won't, I don't know. But we'll have to check those out later. But for now, that's about it. If you haven't played this game, then I kind of do suggest giving it a shot, but you might not like it. I mean, there are plenty of things to like in this game, but it also takes a lot of boring stuff to get to the good stuff. So if you're willing to sit through that, then you'll have a nice time. But if you just don't want to, then you might want to go buy a different game. But with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Goodbye. So yeah, that was Bendy the Ink Machine. I didn't really talk about the story very much. I talked about a few story moments. I didn't really explain that there was an ink machine and there were things coming out of it, like all the creatures were ink. I didn't explain that. Well, I kind of did, but not when I was supposed to. I don't know if I need to. I'm not sure. But it's been 20. I'm done. Goodbye.